Voters voiced their concerns about the presidential caucus, and lawmakers took action. The state Senate voted yesterday to establish a new presidential primary system in Minnesota. Governor Mark Dayton has said he will sign the bill. For the first time in years, Minnesota's caucuses mattered. The state's stake became clear as the number of candidates making campaign stops continued to grow ahead of March 1st. The bill reached a breaking point that day when voters showed up to caucus.
The line was literally out the door. We waited outside for over an hour.
It appears those problems will stay in the past as Minnesota moves to a presidential primary starting in the year 2020.
We're going to have more people able to participate.
Hamline University political science professor David Schultz says primaries open the door to same-day registration, absentee voting, and more flexibility.
Nationally, primaries generally speak louder than caucuses in terms of having an imprint on the selection for the presidential nominee.
Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon, a primary supporter, said instead of having just 1 hour on one night to vote, Minnesotans will now have access to many of the benefits they've come to expect from our regular election process. Professor Schultz says a primary would have the potential to make Minnesota an even bigger player in politics.
We did our caucus. We had about 7 to 8% of our population, maybe 9% of our population show up at the caucuses. Wisconsin had about 40% of its population show up for a primary. And so potentially we could expand by fourfold the number of people who will participate. And is that good for our political process? Of course it's good for our political process.
While parties pick up the tab for caucuses, the state would pay for a primary, meaning you, the taxpayers. Secretary Simon has said it could cost up to $6 million.